The Batman has finally come out after months of waiting, months of delays because of the cough virus, and supposed onset drama that was halting production. We finally have it. I've had some time to sit on this movie and bounce back and forth with my thoughts so I can bring an honest review of my opinion that won't change in the next month. Before I get into this review, I want to be clear that this is not a spoiler-free review, so continue watching at your own risk. On top of that, I want to say that this movie review is of my opinion. I stand by everything I say in this review, and if you have a different opinion, just let me know in the comments. Now this is a Batman movie. Now you might be thinking, we've had multiple different iterations of this character with multiple different actors all cementing themselves in this iconic role. What if I told you it hasn't been done like this? The Batman is one of the most ballsiest movies to come out in this day and age. An age where superhero movies have been confined to a green screen where a director's vision gets buried behind the need of interconnectivity. The Batman exists. Too often in these superhero movies we lose sight of the character we follow, the character we are supposed to see grow. More often than not, I can't find myself caring for the multiple characters outside the poster boy. I may understand their motive, I may understand their end goals, I may even love the movie by the end of it, but the characters tend to slip away in the shadow as if they were never there. Yet the Batman exists. The Batman is a top dog in the superhero genre. It's a personal story of the Batman, of Gotham, of the corruption that plagues the city, and the ones who suffocate under its weight. But we have seen a Gotham like this, haven't we? Well, not exactly. Gotham in this movie has a distinct look to it. The city feels dirty, overcrowded, and in dire need of help. It's a big city, yet it feels like the walls are closing in, almost like it was in the Joker. This movie sets the tone perfectly. It opens with a shot of the Riddler looking into a house, observing a political family, observing their actions. Slowly it cuts to the inside of the house where we can see a TV playing an election debate. An election debate of the known to be victim, who is currently residing in the house. As the debate goes on, we can see the Riddler creepily watching the victim from behind, waiting to strike. The tone of the movie is set so well and perfectly executed that in the instant of murder, we get an understanding of the Riddler as a killer, the brutal nature of this character, his actions, and his look. It doesn't end there, however, as now the movie sets the tone for the Batman. The movie was always highly talked about as this year 2 Batman movie, and we see it just in the starting 5 minutes of the movie. Batman has already established a presence within the city. Gangs may run rampant on the streets of Gotham, but they all fear one symbol. The idea that Batman is beyond the pitch black nothingness, hiding like a predator, waiting to attack, is just phenomenal. Batman has always been this dark and gritty character, but in like the movie realm of things, we've never really seen him like this. This aspect of Batman has almost always been confined to a comic book page and not really translated as well in the movie realm of things. I can't imagine anyone other than Robert Pattinson better suited for the role of this version of the Batman. No longer is he the sparkling vampire boy he once was, now he is vengeance. The Batman in this movie is really expressive just through the use of his eyes. So many emotions were conveyed just through those eyes alone. And I love that we can see his distrust, his fear, his regret, his sympathy, and they never spell it out. But we know. Deep down, he's still that broken boy who never got past his trauma. He is still that scarred child that couldn't be pulled out of the darkness. Batman exists because of the darkness, and this movie shows that. We spend about 95% of the movie watching Bruce be Batman rather than Bruce being Bruce. He doesn't care what happens to him, only what he does for Gotham. Being a Wayne and being Batman are two separate paths that this version of the Caped Crusader has not learned how to adopt both. One of the standout things about this movie to me was how Batman starts the movie with a thought. His feeling is all laid out in front of us during the start of the movie, and it is done so again at the end of the movie. He talks about himself referring himself to a nocturnal animal, and throughout the movie he questions whether Gotham can be saved, whether his Batman has an effect, and if it's worth it. Riddler may be the antagonist, but Batman is also partially an antagonist. He is the reason Riddler tries to find his own sense of judgment, his own vengeance. And it's not just tied to Riddler, it's tied to every Gotham citizen that feels like they've been betrayed by the system, betrayed by society. They all are out there finding their own sense of vengeance, which is exactly what Bruce was doing, which is what Batman has been doing. The movie is heavily noir detective based, and I think pairing the world's greatest detective up against a serial killing Riddler was a great choice. The detective bits of this movie are really neat, with a lot of twists and turns offered. Seeing Batman work around to solve the riddles laid out by the Riddler, and even solve riddles that are posed during their interactions within seconds, a lot of the detective work comes around to further Batman as a character and further the plot of Gotham. Batman doesn't solve everything himself, instead he does get help from people like Gordon, Alfred, and Catwoman. I actually like that because he's still early year 2 Batman, and he isn't perfect, and that can also be seen in his combat where he is really aggressive and still takes shotgun shots to the chest. However, that said, he still does for the most part do the heavy lifting, figuring out the connection between the murder weapon to Riddler's carpet floor to the ciphers spelling out the word drive. But enough talking about Batman, let's talk about his antagonist, the man who I was more excited to see in the role than the big man himself, the Riddler. Now, the Riddler is one of Batman's most formidable foes. He doesn't provide a physical challenge, instead he's always been an intellectual one. In this movie, he is a serial killer targeting Gotham's most elite, as he exposes the corruption that resides from within. Riddler consistently leaves clues for the Batman about his targets, the corruption, and Gotham's past. We actually don't see a whole much of Riddler, but we see enough to grasp a picture of his motive. He clutches to the shadows just like Batman, waiting to attack his prey just like Batman. One of the most memorable things about the Riddler is how he is a person inspired by Batman. Their actions to the matter of justice may vary, but the Riddler is inspired by what Batman does, by vengeance. Throughout the film, we believe that Riddler is toying with the Batman, but we don't realize until the end that Riddler really believes himself to be working with the Batman. Paul Dano does such an amazing job of being the Riddler. He brings the mentally scarred aspect of his character and sells the performance very well. His character, his action, his performance is one of the most memorable things about this whole movie. Batman and Riddler are just two sides of the same coin. He was also a child, orphaned at a young age, scarred from his trauma, stuck in darkness. The Riddler and the Batman are reflections of each other, the persona they could have been. Both characters may look different, speak different, and act different, but internally they both come from the same place, just end up in separate places. And that's true for a lot of the people in Gotham. The fight at the end isn't just man versus man, it is in a way a man versus self fight. Batman is the reason these guys are inspired. One of the last guys Batman takes down calls himself Vengeance, which is what Batman calls himself during the start of the movie. Those who weren't as strong-willed as Bruce are the ones who went down the path paved by the Riddler. And these moments throughout the movie is what shows Bruce, what shows Batman, that he needs to be more than vengeance. Paul Dano's The Riddler is one of the best villain portrayals, not just in Batman cinema, but amongst the superhero movie genre in general. Now, I've talked about the characterization of Batman, of Riddler, of Gotham, but let's move past that for a minute and let's look at the movie itself. This is one of the most visually appealing movies in the superhero genre. It has a dark atmosphere, yet it's very vibrant in colors. The colors just pop, from the orange hues in buildings to the red tones of the rear headlights of the Batmobile. The visual work is done so well, and it's all thanks to the work of Greg Fraser. This movie lives in a deep contrast look, but done so well it's hard to get bored looking at it. A final thing I want to talk about is the score. Michael, whose last name I'm not about to butcher, has created such an amazing score for the Batman. His score is very reminiscent of the animated series score and Nick Arundel's Arkham score, yet still being original that it has its own identity. I remember watching the end of the movie where Batman pulls out the flood survivors and the score used was more emotional in tone and something I felt would come from an Arkham game. The Arkham series is one of my greatest video game favorites of all time, and hearing something that sounds like Nick Arundel's score in this Batman movie was more than music to my ears. His theme for the Riddler is also really frightening and worked so well every time Riddler was on screen. It was soft yet had this scary horror element to it, which worked so well for this mysterious serial killer character. This movie was done so well where one of my favorite scenes from this movie isn't of Batman fighting, it's not an action scene, it's instead Batman's humanity that we see. Batman pulling out flood survivors from the wreckage, interacting with them, helping a young woman and holding her hand, letting her know that everything is okay, realizing that he needs to rise above vengeance and be better. Batman doesn't start the movie being a hero, he is simply just a vigilante here to prey on criminals, yet he ends the movie being a hero. The hero Gotham needs. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. It is one of DC's best work put out and one of the best superhero movies that have been put out. It exceeded all my expectations, which were pretty high to begin with, and I'm overly excited to see what Matt Reeves does with the character in the future. I give this movie a 9.7 out of 10 rating, which is probably the highest I've ever given any movie on my channel. This video has been in a long time making. There was just so many thoughts that I kept writing down, and because there was too much I wanted to talk about, and I had to keep trimming my script because that is how much I love this movie and that is how much I wanted to talk about it. Anyways, till next time, stay safe out there, and hopefully I can get another video out this month and break that 1 month upload cycle I've been having. Till next time, bye bye.